I think at this point I probably need to laugh. Uh, since I launched into this, it's brought me back to high school, junior high school. It's brought me back to my dad. I talked about how difficult it is for me to learn. Um, I started looking around for some of the older items that go into the family history of this particular difficulty, and I ran across this book. I have no idea how old this book is. High Tone makes it, it's a music book. My dad apparently was trying to learn music himself. You've got notes and things here. All he did was write the words down, and I went through this. There's not a single occasion where his words have notation. I think it's also fitting to understand that I might have mentioned, but I'll mention it tonight. I do better when things are larger in as far as following them. I think many people do. I don't know if it's an age-related thing, but if you could see how far apart those lines are, they're darn near comparable to the exploded things I drew up this week up here on this dry erase board. I think you should see what I bought to compare. I bought some brand new blank sheet music notebook, and let's take a look at those and compare what the difference is on this. We'll take this page. I don't know that I can actually write on that, much less read it or ever hope to read it quickly. I don't. That's not part of the goal of this, is to read anything quickly, but you can see the difference is amazing, the way things were thought of back when my dad was a young man. And that's a long time, because I'm not a young man. But he had a lot more room to notate things and draw them. We're going to pick up kind of where we left off. Left off with asking you guys if you're really interested, if you want to, you could do 100 of those. And I did about 30, and then I sat down and did a bunch more. I did about 50, and they were gross. I mean, I have a camera picture of it and paper, and then I went out and bought tracing paper and exploded some of the things I found online. And I was going to sit down and try and put this in my, old hoop-de-doo nervous system. Till I ran across someone on Teresa, I think it's called Music Reading Savant on YouTube. She just said, why don't you just break this up into 4 shapes? So after one attempt, the second one looked pretty good. I don't know, it's been a few hours, but we'll try this. 1, just go down and make a tail. 2, down to the second line. And then 3, cover 3 lines. And then 4, come up and twist around. And you get what looks kind of like that one. And they're pretty easy to replicate. But during the week when I was researching, how do we get this done for these people that are interested? Thank you. I've been informed that there are 17 people who've subscribed, and I'm extremely grateful. I wanted to make sure I said that. Because I am. This is not so important. There's a bass clef. I didn't even want to draw that last week. We won't go into bass clef too much, at least maybe this year, because I learned this week, and this is about me learning, not me teaching you, that the guitar is a treble cleft instrument. A fellow named Johnny Smith, a famous historical jazz guitarist, was one of the few people ever to play with the grand staff. This with the bar on it, the brace, so that you know that these are, it gets really complicated. You just want to make sure that next week when I show up, again, I will have notes, and we will point to where the notes actually are on the neck of your guitar. We'll understand where middle C is. We'll understand where the bass strings open E goes, and we'll also get up to how high the guitar can get. And you'll have to understand that I just learned I mean, I could barely tear myself away. This is a transposed instrument as well. Guitar notation is written an octave up, and we haven't even talked about octaves yet. So there's a lot to get to. But for today, we'll talk about beats per bar, 4/4, 4 beats in a bar. This is a bar line, and this is a double bar line. A double bar line, these are, they tell how, when you end up with 4 beats, you've got to put down a bar line. And then at the end of that is usually like just normal. When you're finished with a phrase or the piece of music that you're working on is completed, you'll see the double bar. And there's other reasons for double bars too. We'll get to those later. They're kind of advanced, but you can see that there's notation. This here is, it's known as the whole rest. You just sit that whole measure out. So that's just whole rest. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, no music. 1, 2, that's a half rest. So you would see that in combination with some other notes, and you'd only give that 2 beats because it's a half rest out of the 4. We won't go into the Italian names. This is a whole note, and so you'd count all 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a half note, and you'd count 1, 2, and this is and there'd be other notes to fill this in, but I'm just making sure you can see this on my phone. This is a quarter note. This is an 8th note. So there'd be 4 of these guys, right? 1, 2. Let's put one. Let's put them in there. What would that look like? It'd look like this. 3 and 4. And then of course you'd have your tails on them, which go just below the bottom line. Okay, and then over here, this is an 8th, and this is a 16th note. And of course, you've got these, your 16th rest, an 8th rest, and a quarter rest. So we've got it covered: quarter, half, whole, 16th, and then an 8th rest. 1/16th, 16th right there, and then a quarter rest. Well, I put this together as fast as I could today because I'll tell you what, this is a lot. This is not going to fall on anybody right away. This is what I talked about in the first introductory epilogue. I don't have, huge disparaging learning difficulties, but I have my things that are well documented in the literature. I've been encouraging myself to be more open than I usually find when I'm looking for tutorials. So I thought I'd share with you my methodology for finding knowledge. Over there on the screen, I've pulled up the YouTube that I have. And so I'm going to step behind the camera and point over across the room, and we'll just get you a flash of that. And that's going to be bad, but just hang with me. Is it doing anything? Yeah, it is. It should be counting. And so we've got this over here. Let's get this off the television. And you can't see it, but it's there. Yeah, there you go. Nope, it's out of focus. There we go. So there's that little tutorial I found. Alrighty, we'll go back over here and we'll look at some other things that I use. Get up here and scroll back to the center position, and we'll get ourselves in there. All right, good. I have this book. I had this for about a year. Music Theory, Idiot's Guide. You can laugh. I do. There's this one. I chose this one because it's got really clear examples in it. Quarter notes, rests, and stuff. I'm not some genius that comes on here and says, "Oh, I learned this week and I'm sharing this with you." I'm going with it myself. We're going to get into the pick, how to seat properly, and all those books I showed you in the first episode, that 20 books or so. I've gone through those. It's all the same. There's nothing different about this. Here's a third book. And this is a gem. This goes back to 1978. It's written by a fella, Roger Evans, right down there. Roger Evans, How to Read Music. And his book is everywhere. It's been published over and over. So I'm not really lecturing out of anything, or I'm not copyright, abuse of reading anything. I put it all in my own terms. I redraw it all. And it's consistent from book to book to book. I got a feeling forever, all the way going back to, I don't know, like we talked about the first time, the 11th century is when it all started being developed. I did find someone who was discussing this. Wish I had taken notes. This is a person on the internet who actually goes and documents not just the development, but the difficulty of notation for a copywriter, a person who's writing copy from a musician who makes an original. And even some of the original guys, they named one great classical composer. And he was so frustrated by notation himself that he developed shorthand symbols that kind of looked like these, but he just wanted to get it done. So he would go down the page and make the squiggle, and that was it. So when it got to the copyist, he was the one that had to go and try and figure out how to make this pretty. That's how unimportant, as long as it's intelligible, and even if there was like notes or some footnotes, then that would be what's actually been found in historical music. And what this has done for me is relieve me of the perfectionist standard that has stopped me up until my tender age of today. And so now there's just like nothing holding back. I mean, the chest beats, I get excited to read about this stuff. And then one of the books that I have showed you tonight says, go slow, read everything over and over. If you'll take the time to learn how to read music, just spend the time. Because afterwards, don't worry about reading fast. Like you might have had private lessons that taught you, piano or some other thing, and you're supposed to be able to read at speed. If you can learn where one note is, and that's next week, then it's perfectly acceptable by the authors of many of these larger books to find your way. And as this process of finding your way is apparently painful to many people, just continue with the process, and eventually it gets, wish someone had told me this in the 4th grade when I started, gets easier. So all these folks that I studied, Rick Beato, I got to get his Beato book. It's got to be an awesome book. All these people that have lots of theory on YouTube, they've been at it for dozens of years. In his case, career length. And a lot of the other people have been to the Berklee School of Music, have studied jazz. So I think I'm going to close it up on that. We've got this covered. There's a 4-step way to easily make 1, 2, 3. If you start with the first and a tail first, you center it around there. And you'll find this in a book. This will be okay. You can look at this video and say, okay, those are all those things. This is a whole note. This is a half note. These are 4/4 notes. There would be 2 of those half notes. This is an 8th rest, a 16th rest, 16th note, 8th note, 16th note, and then of course there's your quarter rest, so the 8th rest, and then the 16th rest. Bar and double bar. Bars note the end of 4 beats, and then double bars give you the end of a phrase, expression, or the entire piece. I think I got it all covered. I would feel horrible if I messed anything up, but if I did, I know I can trust you to mention it in the comments. Well, tell your friends, I am so grateful that this many of you showed up so far. This will stay up no matter how bad it looks or good it looks. We can refer to it, stop motion it, use the pictures if I don't stand in front of them. And I would play tonight. I'll play probably tomorrow, but I did a little, when I practice too much, sometimes you can do a little cutting on the inside of the flesh. And so my middle finger, which I use a lot on the neck, has a sore spot, feels kind of like a splinters in it. And I've had that on all my fingers, and it'll probably be ready to go tomorrow. And I'm kind of excited. I haven't played on the camera here for a while. I went out and bought new microphones. I have new microphone stands. I have ordered for the camera that I'm learning to use a hot shoe shotgun mic that plugs into the camera. That'll help. And we'll start breaking into, let me know if you want me to show you how I go through that process of learning how to use the digital audio interface, the workstation, and the same thing for the camera, the Canon M50, and then learning how to use, I'm going to get it's a $347 download for DaVinci Studio. It looks really good. Okay, I think that's enough for tonight. I hope you enjoyed the time that we've spent today. I really did. And keep playing. Never stop. I won't. Bye.